So again, I just want to welcome the Leading Age members to the recording session here today, the webinar sponsored by Aon and presented here by Aon. My name is Walter Constantine. I'm an account executive and insurance broker here for Aon here in Atlanta, Georgia. For your reference, Aon and Leading Age are strategic partners on a national level, and this is our first effort locally to begin making a local connection here in Georgia and eventually in South Carolina. I will be the Aon representative with Leading Age Georgia going forward, and we really appreciate you tuning in today. Aon is one of the world's largest insurance brokerage and consulting firms. We have offices in over 160 different countries, totaling approximately 66,000 employees. Specifically to Leading Age, Aon is a valued consultant and the Leading Age member insurance program administrator. Today we'll be introducing the concept of business continuity planning. Jim Pinzari is our presenter and has been a risk management consultant for 30 plus years with specific concentration in business continuity. He is a certified business continuity planning professional working both on the insurance carrier and insurance broker side of the business. Throughout different points in his career, Jim gained valuable experience providing business continuity planning in the healthcare field amongst other areas of industry. He began his time with Aon in 2005, and we are delighted that he can join us today as our featured presenter. We hope you are as excited about business continuity planning as we are, and really appreciate your time and interest this afternoon. Without further ado, Jim Pinzari.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Walter. Today I'm going to be talking about business continuity management, what it is, how to go about developing the program, and at the end of the presentation I'll provide you with some examples of business continuity issues that are applicable to the healthcare industry. On the first slide, I provided a definition of business continuity management. Let me provide you with a little bit more detail. Business continuity management is really a self-sustaining program developed according to industry best practices. As the definition states, it's an ongoing management and governance process supported by senior management, and this is extremely important. Without support from senior management, both the program and the business continuity plans will eventually fail. In order to assure program sustainability, senior management needs to set up a system of accountability with designated resources with defined responsibilities in business continuity management. According to best practices, they need to follow a defined process to identify and assess risk and associated business impact. Based on that assessment, an organization needs to develop viable strategies and recovery actions in the event that normally required resources are unavailable. Those resources can be people, physical space.
The conference has been muted. The conference has been unmuted.
Over the past 5 years, we've seen more and more pressure on companies from stakeholders to develop business continuity plans. And during that period, we've seen a dramatic increase in business continuity audits from stakeholders to evaluate business capabilities against established best practices. There are 5 or 6 major BCM categories or standard groups around the world, all of which are close enough in requirement that if you comply with one, you'd also do very well with others. This statement, which reads, increased governance scrutiny on senior management by stakeholders and professional bodies, suggests business continuity plans be audited and maintained in accordance with accepted best practices and guidelines, comes directly from the National Fire Protection Association 1600 standard, which is the standard on disaster and emergency management and business continuity planning. Generally speaking, there are 6 major categories of best practice requirements in order to develop a business continuity program. Over the next 15 or so slides, we'll go through each one of those at a high level. The first category basically defines the program. It defines the program sponsor and its owners. It defines who is responsible for coordinating the program and a detailed description of the program framework. It defines the program committee, which should be mid-level and senior management leadership, responsible for validation of assessment results, strategy development, and plan approval. It describes how the program is administered and defines the reporting protocol and hierarchy. It also defines any compliance requirements regarding other standards or regulations. In your case, it may be HIPAA or JACO regulations. It defines the principles, mission goals, objectives, and purpose of business continuity management within the organization, including interests of its stakeholders, roles and responsibilities, and the enabling authority. From a financial standpoint, it defines the budget commitment to business continuity management, which is very important. And finally, it defines critical records management, including document control and backup procedures. Plan development defines the process required to understand the risks and associated business impact. The business impact analysis is a process that allows an organization to assess areas such as most critical functions within a department, any critical applications required, recovery time objective, interdependencies with departments and any outside service providers, any technology requirements, and critical staff and whether cross-training is required. This is typically administered by a questionnaire with follow-up validation by a designated committee. The business impact analysis allows an organization to determine the most critical functions or services and resource requirements and helps to prioritize them from a recovery standpoint. The risk assessment evaluates both physical and operational risks that could impact the organization. Examples might be adequate automatic sprinkler protection, evacuation procedures, physical location relative to known risks, including flood, tornado, hurricane, earthquake, and also loss of any service providers. The risk assessment is primarily used to mitigate the risk of loss. The risk and business impact analysis will provide you with a better understanding of the hazards that could impact your operations, such as loss of power, loss of staff due to pandemic, loss of physical space due to damage associated with any natural hazards. And based on the results of a risk and business impact analysis, this part of the process requires that each department develop strategies and recovery actions to mitigate the loss of any resources required to conduct normal operations. Plan development and implementation also includes the development of 3 best practices plan components, which include emergency response or management, crisis management and communications, and business restoration and operational recovery. Emergency response is the initial actions for responding to and stabilizing an event, including evacuation and accountability of staff and patients, incident stabilization, initial damage assessment so that actions can be taken to restore operations. This may involve local utilities, contractors for repair, and replacement of furniture and equipment, to name a few. Emergency response also includes communications with such groups as local authorities, including the fire department, police department, building inspector, as well as the business owners. Part of this component is communication to the senior crisis management team to provide continuous incident status updates. And we'll talk more about crisis management on the next couple of slides. If it doesn't already exist, part of the process involves the development of a crisis management capability to coordinate an organization's response to a crisis in order to minimize damage to the organization's profitability, reputation, and ability to conduct business. This involves establishing crisis communication protocols designed to protect and defend the individual or the company. Every organization needs to be represented by a crisis management team. The team typically consists of a media representative, that can be internal or an external public relations firm, legal counsel, a facilities manager, the site or the designated site disaster recovery coordinator, a representative from human resources, and business owner and department leaders representing the most critical functions or processes within the operation. There are two parts to business restoration and operational recovery. The first is the restoration of information technology, and the second part involves restoration of all departments or end users that are enabled by information technology. Each department should have their own recovery plan that is designed to recover critical functions as well as being integrated and coordinated with the overall recovery of operations. If you remember, critical dependencies between departments are one of the areas assessed during the business impact analysis. The plan should be designed to provide high-level, step-by-step, predetermined recovery actions using any necessary recovery strategies. The plan should also be designed to recover within a predetermined recovery time objective. As mentioned earlier, when developing and implementing response and recovery capabilities, comprehensive business continuity management plans should consider 6 areas within each department, including critical business functions or processes, essential employees, technology equipment, facilities and infrastructure requirements, information technology, and support services of third-party providers and critical suppliers. So let's review how the plan components work through an incident. Emergency response or management is the evacuation, stabilization, and initial damage assessment. Crisis management provides leadership, decision-making, incident coordination, oversight, and communications. And business restoration and operational recovery deal with the recovery of critical resources required to maintain normal business operations. The 5th business continuity management component is the process that involves exercising the plans to ensure that all team members are familiar with their responsibilities as well as strategies. Plan maintenance ensures that plans are reviewed periodically so that any changes in the organization are reflected in the plan, and periodic plan audit will help ensure compliance with best practices standards. Finally, the last category of best practices is program integration. It's very important that training and awareness programs be developed and implemented to ensure that all existing and future staff be trained in response and recovery. As you know, HIPAA requires healthcare operations have plans in place to provide alternate facilities in order to stay operational during emergencies. We found that most healthcare organizations have some type of emergency response and IT recovery capability, but do not have recovery plans once the incident has been stabilized. The last few slides, I'll be talking about some specific healthcare challenges faced during an incident timeline. From an emergency standpoint, you might want to consider developing strategies or recovery actions regarding the discharge process. Which patients meet discharge criteria and which are candidates for transfer to other patient facilities? How will their medical needs be addressed, including prescriptions, and what arrangements are in place for transportation? During the crisis, who's in charge of the overall incident? Who oversees relocation of patients, and who communicates with next of kin, the local media, staff, and third-party providers that offer assistance during the crisis? And finally, from a recovery standpoint, have alternate facilities been established and resource requirements been defined? How will continuity of care be handled regarding patient data and communications How will communications protocols be established? And finally, how will patient billing be handled? And has any contingency planning been put into place regarding loss of power? As you can see, the process of developing a business continuity management program is very involved, but it's well worth it in order to assure that contingencies are in place to protect both patients as well as business. Thank you.
I'd like to open up for questions for Jim or for Walter. Can everyone hear me okay?
Don't be shy.
And I hope that you will consider replacing the term. And most of us in our field use the term resident or client. It's all very applicable even at the patient level, like in the situation with those looking at Florence and Our Lady of Perpetual Help Home. But critically important is just remembering that there's so many facets to business continuity when beyond just emergency preparedness. I will share that we are going to have a really comprehensive disaster preparedness course that's going to come available in mid-March. But I really appreciate having this vantage point just from risk management perspective as we all, read the document and sign up on the document, and the document lives somewhere in a file folder, but really thinking through what we should be considering beyond just disasters. But when there are other situations at hand in crisis that impede our normal day-to-day. So I open the floor. Any questions for us?
Well, we just want to thank you guys. I know this is a small crowd today, but we hope that others will listen in, as this will be archived and available to members only. But thanks again for your time, out of your day here. It's a busy time of year, and we hope that you're able to gain some more insight about AON and about business continuity planning and management. We hope to have a follow-up webinar, as Jackie mentioned, to complement this one. And if your operation has a need of this immediately, and you want to begin a discussion about that, please reach out to Jim or myself, and you can see our contact information right there. Also, if you have an interest in the Leading Age Member Insurance Program administrated by AON, please contact me, Walter Constantine, directly. And again, this is Walter Constantine and Jim Pinzari with AON. And happy holidays to everybody, and we wish you the best of luck going forward.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.